Welcome to Use and Limitation of Respirators training. Use of respirator protection is regulated in California by Cal-OSHA in 8 CCR 5144. See Janus Corporation's Respirator Manual for a detailed explanation of this regulation and its requirements. This information is also covered in other Janus Corporation respirator training. Janus Corporation employees use respirators to protect themselves from various airborne hazards. This training is one of 5 individual respirator trainings in the Field Flow Training Program. Airborne particulate hazards. Particulate or aerosols are called dust, fumes, or mists, depending on their origin and size. Dusts are generated from solid material and are typically relatively large. Fumes are formed in condensation of molten metal, often from welding or torch cutting, and are relatively small. Mists are generated from liquids that are usually relatively large. The effects of these various types of particulate can vary quite a bit depending on the size and the material of the dust, fume, or mist. Use of HEPA-filtered respirators and N95 respirators for materials like silica, valley fever fungus, gypsum, fiberglass, and similar large particulate matter will protect a worker from nuisance irritation, fibrosis or scarring of the lungs, irritation of mucous membranes, sensitization, where you become allergic to something you were not previously allergic to, fevers, metal fume fever, for example, cancer, and various other respiratory complications. Gaseous contaminants can cause a variety of effects, just as particulates can. Some of the most common significant effects: asphyxiation by inert gas. An inert gas is a gas that would not hurt you by itself, but it displaces the oxygen in your lungs and can suffocate you. Irritation, narcosis, or drowsiness or sleepiness, unconsciousness, poisoning, or sensitization, again, allergic reactions to chemicals you were not previously allergic to. Consumption and swallowing hazards. Some airborne contaminants can be harmful whether they are respirated, breathed in, or ingested, eaten, or consumed. Lead is an example of this type of contaminant. It will hurt us whether we eat it, drink it, or breathe it. When wearing a respirator that protects you from breathing an airborne contaminant, it also prevents you from consuming that contaminant. The respirator not only prevents the airborne contaminant from being pulled into your mouth when you breathe, and where saliva and or other bodily defenses funnel it to your stomach rather than your lungs, it also prevents you from ingesting the contaminant through hand-to-mouth activities. Note, it's important to assure you decontaminate your hands, body, and face when removing a respirator to prevent hand-to-face activities, hands to eyes, hands to nose, hands to mouth, causing potential ingestion exposures after the respirator is removed. As noted in previous respirator trainings, respirator filter cartridges are color-coded. Certain colors or combination of colors represent the type of contaminants that the cartridge is effective against. Color codes we commonly use at Janus: if there's no color or gray, it's an N95 filtering facepiece respirator or a respirator with N95 level cartridges. To be used for nuisance dust, silica, valley fever, fungus, and other particulates that do not require a HEPA filtration. Magenta, or purple, it's particulates, and it's high efficiency particulate air filter, 99.97% effective against particulate matter 0.3 microns in size. Black for organic vapors, white for acid gases, yellow, which is the one Janus uses most often when it's a gaseous or vapor cartridge, acid gases and organic vapors, and green for ammonia and similar materials. When to change respirator cartridges. Gas and vapor cartridges are absorption filters that work until they can no longer absorb the contaminant they are designed to absorb. Then they allow the contaminant to pass through. Absorption filters should be worn for a specific amount of time, but also should be changed if the wearer starts to smell the contaminant that they're being protected from or starts to feel the effects of exposure to the contaminant while wearing the respirator, even if the allotted time for use has not expired. This is known as breakthrough. When to change respirator cartridges to particulate filters. Particulate filters work better the dirtier they get. They should be changed out whenever the wearer finds even the slightest resistance to breathing in or feels the respirator collapsing on their face when they breathe in. Things to remember about respiratory protection. This review contains information from prior respiratory protection trainings as well as this training. Some air contaminants are skin absorbable, such as hydrogen cyanide. Therefore, relying on respiratory protection is not sufficient. You need disposable coveralls, rubber gloves, and such as well. Only certain types of respiratory protection may be used in immediately dangerous to life and health, IDLH atmospheres. If Janus Corporation employees must work in an IDLH atmosphere, they will receive training specific to the hazard prior to being allowed to enter the IDLH atmosphere. Air purifying respirators do not supply oxygen. Oxygen-deficient atmospheres may be entered only using air-supplied respirators. Maintaining approval and usefulness of respirators depends on proper maintenance. Persons using respiratory protection must be properly fit tested and trained, either initially or refresher, within the last 12 months. No single respirator protects from all potential contaminants. Particulate filters do not protect from gases or vapors. Gas and vapor filters do not protect against particulates. In atmospheres containing both potentially harmful particulates and gases and vapors, stack cartridges must be worn. Particulate respirators work better the dirtier they get and should be changed out when they start to restrict airflow to the worker. Gas and vapor cartridges work until they have absorbed as much gas or vapor as they can. Then they let the gas or vapor through the filter and provide no further protection from the contaminant. These filters should be changed out when you can smell the vapor, when you can start to feel the effects of the exposure to the gas or vapor, or after a set amount of exposure time. Thank you for taking Use and Limitations of Respirator training. Please proceed to the quiz.